which we have every morning to begin the business of the day. One of our colleagues mentioned Ahmed's mother. In fact, Keminni, you don't need to be a relative of Hussein to actually feel the pinch of that ghastly attack on our colleague. And immediately it sent some level of shiver down my spine. And I felt same when I went to the press center to cover the GJA statement. You could see from the faces of colleague journalists, and it tells one thing, that the future is just unpredictable.
Absolutely.
I mean, if we call ourselves, or we pride ourselves, a beacon of hope as far as democracy in Africa is concerned, and Ghana, which is known to be, one would say, a powerhouse of democracy, we simply cannot use institutions to address our concerns, but resort to killing. Then it is unfortunate.
Very well. Now, let's talk about the killings and others in the past. I mean, Ahmed has shaken us, but we know that this will not be the first time a journalist is being put down. Share with us.
So, Keminni, in fact, let me just, I know a number of people, as far as this fraternity is concerned, has come under certain level of attacks. But remember 2007, in February 2007, King George, Samuel Enin, who was then the chairman of the Ashanti regional branch of the GJA, was murdered. And we understand that his killing comes after a story that he actually did. We don't want to go into it because it's still under investigations, because the police has not been able to actually
come to a head on this.
Exactly. So justice is still delayed as far as any murder is concerned. Then in 2016, exactly on September 16, 2016, a broker journalist, Portia Ama Ejewa, who also works for a local radio station, Bekwai, was also stabbed to death. Then somewhere in 2018, Ahmed's case is the latest. Then, of course, the murder of King George Abanga, a correspondent for Peace FM in Goso, was also murdered. So in all these cases, we've not heard, the principal murders or the principal perpetrators of these murders being tamed, Keminni, and that's worrying.
Now, it makes you want to think about how this could also end and the impact on yourself. How has it made you feel?
I believe that justice hasn't been served, and I couldn't agree more with the former editor of Graphic Communication, now the chairman of the National Media Commission, Mr. Boadu Ayebuafo. I actually asked him this question, and this is what he had to say to that.
Let's take a listen to that quickly.
I remember in a particular instance where two policemen were involved, where they had gone to some village in the some Gasal area or the Weja there, and they have been murdered. There were no people to give them information. And indeed, actually, the people have been buried and concrete had been laid over their bodies. And yet, the police were able to uncover that. Now, it means that they have the skill. And that what we are urging them to do is that they should not deploy that skill only when security personnel are involved, or only when high-profile political figures are involved.
You asked the question. That was his response. What do you think about it?
Well, like I said earlier on, I couldn't agree more with Comrade Ayebuafo. I should just prefix his name this way, because he's also a member of the Inky fraternity. Since Eni's murder, we've not been able to arrest or tame any principal perpetrator. Okay, I've read to you other cases, the police hasn't been able to have been able to arrest, okay, let alone prosecute any perpetrator behind these ghastly attacks. So will Ahmed's case be different?
You would want to argue that, look, the GJ, yes, they held a news conference, but then it would end there, and then there was no push for justice for the family of the journalists, for the fraternity in general. And so let me ask you, when you went there and you heard the speeches from particularly the Ghana Journalists Association's president, did it give you any hope that, look, in spite of everything, things could get better?
Well, the ball is in their court. They have another opportunity to convince us that we are dealing with a serious association, organization, or even institutions as far as security operatives in this country are concerned. Because I don't want to believe that it's one of those tributes, all right? Anytime an incident like that or like this happens, we hear people coming out to make statements. It is one thing pouring your heart, okay, as to how you feel. I mean, it is normal. Nobody will be happy. Nobody will jubilate, hit the street and jubilate over the death of even an enemy. That will be very weird. That is not our culture. That is not what we are known for, okay? Even if your enemy dies, you show some level of grief, all right? So it is normal to hear people, it is normal to hear organizations to commiserate. But that doesn't mean that the justice has been served. The only way families or the family of Ahmed, the only way friends of Ahmed, the only way colleagues of Ahmed will be satisfied, will be kind of, even if you are not getting him back, as in life, something has been done, is to get justice served, is to get the perpetrators of this particular crime behind bars, is to get the perpetrators of Enin behind bars, is to get the perpetrators of Abanga behind bars, is to get the perpetrators of Portia behind bars. Then we'll know that something has been done.
I'm going to come back to you, and we will talk about what you expect of the association and other ones like it that look at the profession or the vocation journalism. But let's take a listen to an eyewitness we spoke to earlier today.
Brothers to be Omabe Park moto. Awa haseya enti moto na moto ni sise ba kote edge say na ba kote edge say ena moto no esiso from moto jano esiso from time na omo bae no 3:15 no till that 10:30 na omo ye de omo fia no makono 10:30 to 10:35 mo no ena me say me buso omo say na omo moto na esiso no eja no omufu we nhia na no ka so me forget aka say no omufu ya de omu twen obi na so omu ye land guard for na omu twen omu bra amede ba no odu T junction so ekwan no na oginan to oginan pe no and ohwe right first because na me twen say car ne betwam na me ma de metwam akoto ti no eti otwam no ono ye say car ba ko be taxi bi twam taxi ni twam no anche and Ahmed no see what yesim and a man of first shot. Po no san and was 2 second. But no tia car no so the coco share that hairdresser salon or the coco shell. So they can't question on Sakoto third one. Nam ka say now obi a yedi bronya wie na papa penny say o to knockout sa and was three. And I mean about ka say Jimmy for sorry for on na knockout you to ne kuta papa no.
Horrifying indeed. William Evans Inkum is a senior reporter and assignments editor here at the GH1 television newsroom, and he's here with me in the studio. You had the narration. It sounds very calculated.
Very calculated, a well-orchestrated plan to just eliminate
this young man.
This young man, and you know, he spoke in tree, so I'll just try and then summarize all that the guy says. So, according to that eyewitness, he saw two guys on a motorbike. They came around that particular area, exactly where Ahmed resides, and I mean, their action looked, I mean, suspicious, because the motor had the engine on, running. This particular guy who just spoke to our reporter went to them, approached them actually, and asked, why is it that you've parked, but you still can hear the engine or the sound of the engine of your motorcycle? And said, well, we are here, we are looking for somebody. We are Langas actually, looking for somebody. So at that moment, Ahmed also arrived at the scene. Then one of the guys on the motorbikes approached Ahmed, shot multiple times. Ahmed sped off and even rammed into a salon nearby. The guy followed him and then shot again. There was another guy who was passing by. He heard a gunshot, and this guy who actually, I'm talking about the principal witness, when he heard the sound of the gunshot, he thought that it was a knockout. Yes, and he was even saying that, why are you, still, kind of doing that, even though we are done with the Christmas and all that. And this guy prompted him that, look, this is not the sound of a knockout, but a sound of a gun. So please, you only have to, flee the scene. And he fled.
I see. Now, later on State of Affairs, we'll look at the nature of this crime. But right now, I wanted to ask you about what you expect of the association and other associations that deal with business of journalists.
Well, I think this one goes beyond the GJ alone. Keminni, I've sat here and I've said that I feel worried, even on elections day, nobody protects the journalist. It's like, so when that political figure comes around to vote, the attention is on him only.
And him only.
And nobody cares about the journalist. Without us, what happens to our fledgling democracy? Without us, what happens to the so-called social interventions? Without us, what happens to those policies and programs of government that drives our economy?
And indeed, bringing governance to the doorstep of the people. One
thing that people have forgotten is that our democracy wouldn't have happened without the contribution of the Ghanaian journalists. Our independence, J.B. Dankwa, the dawn of Ghana politics, was once a journalist. The people who fought for our liberation from all forms of colonial, powers, a number of them were journalists. So you cannot tell the Ghanaian history, you cannot tell the Ghanaian democracy without the input that the Ghanaian journalist has actually effected as far as our evolving democracy is concerned. So I believe that it's about time policymakers, it is about time institutions, it's about time other stakeholders appreciate the work of the journalists, and also, look, we are not angels, okay? Sometimes we err and all that. That is why we have, the courts. If there's something that maybe a journalist might have done and you think that, well, it wasn't done well, you have every opportunity, you have every right to seek the face of the law. We have instances where journalists who have gone wrong, who have infringed on people's rights, being summoned and being, fined. Some have been even put. Yes, some have been in prison and all that. So what stops you from using the institutions to, get justice?
Very well. Evans, thank you very much for your time tonight. This conversation will continue at 8:30 here on GH1 television. But that'll be all for Insights. We had for other stories when we return. Stay with us. Now, an estimated 10% of the world's population live with one form of disability or the other, with more than 5 million people with disabilities living in Ghana. This is 1/5 of the total population. But sexual and reproductive health issues of persons with disability in Ghana are not prioritized, according to them. Alizaite spent some time with some persons with disabilities who have faced so much discrimination about their sexuality and are demanding better policies to properly assert these rights. This report was put together through a grant from the Deliver Fellowship Program by Pen Plus Bites with support from Star Ghana.
Someone asked me whether I can have sex. Someone has asked me that question before, and I laughed it off. And as if that's not enough, somebody asked me whether men ask me out.
This is what 29-year-old Suraya Alidu Maltiti has had to contend with. Questions that clearly infringe on her human rights and make her uncomfortable. Unfortunately, the current Disability Act of Ghana, Act 715 of 2006, is not definitive on issues of sexual and reproductive health of persons living with disabilities, leaving the general population to wonder whether they are sexually active. Just like many other persons living with some form of disability, Suraya does not only have to live with the daily discrimination and stigmatization accompanying her disability, she also has to field questions from curious people about her sexual and reproductive life, often asked with sneers.
It's very demeaning, very, very demeaning. Sometimes one won't even ask you a question. The way the person will look at you like you don't belong, you know.
Suraya could easily have been discouraged, being the only unmarried girl among her sisters, but she is determined to complete her degree program in the Christian University College in Kumasi in the Ashanti region before pursuing relationship goals. She is unhappy with how the sexual and reproductive health and rights of persons with disabilities are handled in the country. She recalled how some friends with disabilities were treated when they sought sexual and reproductive health care from the hospital.
I've had people who are even shy. They were shy to report to the hospital when they were pregnant because they would think that the doctor's reaction or the health worker's first reaction would be, like, you know, like, you're pregnant, you're a physically challenged person, you're pregnant. How did you get pregnant? We should make it okay for people to feel free and talk about what they have when they go to the hospital. That you are disabled doesn't mean you're a saint.
Suraya is not the only person with disability tired of the perceptions, sneers and snickering concerning their sexuality. 33-year-old chairman of the Greater Accra Disability Sports, Alfred Kwashi, explained the psychological impact of the constant discrimination meted out to persons with disabilities, either through action or words.
I don't think the authorities or the health professionals are also helping matters. Because if, let's say, a wholeness could be thinking in this direction, what do you think a lay person who has no knowledge about medicine or something will also be thinking about?
Narrating the struggles he went through in the past before giving birth to his 2 children, he expressed worry over how some health personnel even receive and treat persons with disabilities when they visit health centers to check on their reproductive health.
There are families who will never allow a person with disability to date their children. We have countless of stories where the women have been abandoned, although they have children with the men. They've been abandoned because they have a disability and others. And because the people are not thinking about the reproductive rights of persons with disability, services and information to services to help them are also non-existent.
Strangely, sex talk in general enjoys an inhibition in Ghana. Few homes ever broach the subject, often in undertones, and certainly not in front of minors. And so children of able-bodied parents are left in a lurch, while their differently abled counterparts are ignored completely as asexual. And it is this sexual perception that permeates the wider population.
Anytime I see them, I feel pity for them at one side, and I become empathetic. I could equally be in their shoe.
I would wonder what happened, or like where the person was from and who got that person into such a situation, because if the person is physically challenged and the person has help from nowhere, and then you just, let me say, rape the person just to impregnate the person like that.
A recent...
Our ignorance on this subject is unbelievable, and I'm sad to say that would include me. I've got to be honest. There's some of the things I'm learning in that story I had no idea of, and that's the reason we want to have a conversation on the back of that. National Communications Director for the Ghana Federation of Disability Organization, Adam Abdul Wahab, is here with me in the studio. Good evening, Adam.
Good evening.
Forgive our ignorance, first of all, okay, which includes me. In my quiet space, I have also asked myself such questions. I mean, it would be unfair to walk up to anybody with any form of disability and ask that, but I have thought about it.
Okay.
Indeed. Have you had any experiences yourself? I mean, have people wondered and been brave enough to even ask you about your sex and reproductive, rights, perhaps?
Yeah, of course. Once I'm a person with disability, definitely you should believe that one time in my life has ever had such experience, especially when it comes to picking a girlfriend or searching for a woman to start a relationship. People had been wondering whether, as a person with albinism, I am sexually active enough, or even if I have that right to be able to associate myself with women in that direction. And even the stigma that will be attaching to it, even if the woman is bold enough to have accepted my proposal to be in a relationship with me. So
how hard is it? How hard is it?
Of course, there have been some situations where even after proposing to the lady, friends and family sometimes will even ask her, were you blind to choose somebody like this to be with? It's actually something that was very pathetic, very disturbing, and very worrying. But then, getting to understand our ignorance, I think that it is just a time for us to intensify our advocacy and education to be able to get the root of that.
Very well. Now, I can imagine that it will be very hard on anybody if you are treated that way. But we've had conversations about the rights of persons with disability. One part we haven't touched is the sexuality of a person with disability. What does the law say about that?
So, when we are talking about the law, we have the Ghana Disability Act, that is Act 715. Yes, there is a component of the Act that actually talks about health. But one, health is a major concern of every living human being. Then the Act actually did not specify anything about the sexual and reproductive health of persons with disability. It is clear that the country do have health policy which has captured issues about sexual and reproductive health that seems to include persons with disability. And probably That is why the Act could not specify issues around sexual and reproductive health of persons with disability. Also, in the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability, there are clauses about health, but it's assumed that
it will
all
cover
those,
persons
it covers
with
persons with disabilities in terms of sexual and reproductive, what do you call it?
Indeed. Now, so how difficult does that make it for persons with any form of disability at all to assert their sexual and reproductive rights? For instance, in the story we just watched, the young lady goes to the hospital, she's pregnant, and then a health practitioner is asking her questions about how did you get pregnant, and because if I walk to the hospital, nobody is going to ask me how I got pregnant. They're just going to give me health care. And so when a person with disability goes through that, of course we know it's unfair treatment, but how does the absence of anything specific in the disability law make this difficult for you to enjoy?
Yeah, anyway, we might not say that it is totally absent. It's there. But the issue have to be with the awareness and the understanding of the law. Of course, once we are not aware of the law or the existence of the law and even have a better understanding of the law, as health professionals, they must still have to stick to their own cultural way of what you call it, thinking. You know, society today is driven by our cultural perception, what we think about culture, and sometimes also our religion. If you look at the young lady who was saying something about her friend, he said that, oh, she felt pity that a person who cannot even help herself, who cannot do anything for herself, go into pregnancy by a different person. The assumption is that once the person is a person with disability, he or she is incapable of doing anything,
or does not have the right to enjoy,
does not have the right to enjoy sexuality. And again, many nurses even still think that disability is communicable or contagious for that matter. If somebody goes to have affairs with a woman or man with disability, they are standing the chance of also being affected. So as it happened that get to the hospital and they are wondering which man was even bold enough to sleep with this woman to get her pregnant, or which woman was brave enough to sleep with this man to the extent of getting pregnant. I think it has to deal with we doing a proper orientation, having the nurses or health practitioners to have better education on the existing laws protecting and promoting the sexual and reproductive health and rights of persons with disabilities.
These laws, which generally guide sexual rights, reproductive rights, they exist for all of us, including persons with disability, albeit there's nothing specific for persons with disability. Now, given the cultural context that you have identified right now, I would assume that if the sexual rights of a person with disability is violated, it makes it very difficult for you to get justice, for you to even demand it in the first place. Share with us how it has been over the years.
For over the years, we have not had a situation where a person with disability, sexual right, or sexual and reproductive health right have been what you call it, violated and taken through the legal, what do you call it, process. But the fact is that once we have a national law about persons with disability and their rights, there is also something we call the LI. The LI will operationalize the law. And of course, in operationalizing the law, the LI should be able to specify if somebody's rights is being abused in one direction or the other. These are some of the sanctions that should be applying to the person.
The point I'm trying to make is, if a person with disability is raped, of course we know that the laws are clear on what rape is. But given the cultural context that you indicated, the fact that, you know, you first of all, you look down upon. Second, already people are thinking that you shouldn't be having sex in the first place, or you are nothing at all. We can do whatever we want with you. It must make it difficult for even somebody who has been raped or violated in any way to want to seek justice, to even come to the GFD and say that this is what happened to me. It ends up being forgotten or treated the family way.
Yeah, but then it has to also do with the capacity of the person involved in the case. So it means that we need to have persons with disability also understand their sexual and reproductive health and rights, because the law is there. It's a national law, or the laws and policies are there for everybody, whether you're a person with disability or you're not a person with a disability. If a woman without disability is raped, the law that will be used to prosecute the one who does it should be the same law that will be used to prosecute the person who rapes the persons with disability. And once we have law, we shouldn't be thinking that culture should supersede our laws. Irrespective of the cultural context, the laws must be made to work.
So how can we ensure that the person with disability first is aware that it doesn't matter what you look like, what you sound like, it doesn't matter what you can say, as long as you are violated sexually, as long as you go to the hospital and a nurse or a health practitioner abuses your rights to privacy, to courteousness, you can and should seek redress with the law. How do we make sure that they know that in spite of nothing being in the disability law, the general law also is for you?
Yeah, I think with the help of Amplify Change, GFD is implementing the program entitled Promoting the Sexual and Reproductive Health and Rights of Persons with Disability. As part of activities of that project, we conducted a stigma research where we come to realize that one of the factors that hinders persons with disability from assessing their sexual and reproductive health and rights is low self-esteem. So this means that they have low knowledge of their rights and how they can assess it. So one of the things we are doing is to develop the capacity of persons with disabilities to understand their rights as human beings, and then also understand how they can assert the right once they are violated in whichever way, whether in the health direction, education, or whatever. But this, we are focusing on the sexual and reproductive health and rights of persons with disability. So orientation, sensitization, capacity development are all ongoing in some districts to get persons with disability understand their right better and how they can seek redress in case they are being violated.
Very well. All the best with that. And I believe today the rest of us have learned some really good lesson from the story. Again, catch the full version of the story on Facebook immediately after the news. We'll also air it again on Newsroom tomorrow at 11:30. I'll be right back.
A new day comes with a new hustle. My name is Shatawale. I started on the streets. They tried to hold us back, but we kept moving. I worked hard because I knew one day I would play hard.
Yeah, we work hard, we play hard, yeah. Cause I stop energy, stop energy, stop energy, stop energy, stop energy, stop energy. As I keep stop energy, as I keep stop energy, as I keep stop energy.
Storm Energy Drink. Work hard, play hard.
Everybody said I'm low.
We wish you a Merry Christmas from Sasso insecticide spray and Sasso mosquito quack, tum tum preco. Wo bronya yimu, yempen tum tum ya. Wo bronya yimu, yempen tum tum ya. We wish you a Sasso Christmas from our Sasso team. We wish you a Sasso Christmas from our Sasso.
When we join our hands, it means that we are one. It means we stand, believe, and rise together. Because when our hands are joined, our hearts are joined too. And when all our hearts beat as one, extraordinary things become possible every day. The more you drink awake water, the more we can help keep hearts awake. For every bottle you buy, an amount will be donated to the National Cardiothoracic Center, Ghana.
As if one was not enough, not two but three of your favorite electronics and home appliances brands are combining powers to bring you the Electroland Triple Treat promotion. Hey babe, this bronya, buy your 32-inch Samsung satellite TV for 999 Ghana cedis. Those tall 500-watt Bluetooth speakers for 1,399 Ghana cedis. NASCO TV for 699 Ghana cedis. The standing freezer for 1,699 Ghana cedis. And the fan for 139 Ghana cedis per. And you also get that media display fridge for 1,799 Ghana cedis. High tech. This bronya, you go shop tire. Sake of Electroland is giving you that triple treat discount and freebies when you buy Samsung, Media or NASCO. Visit our all-new premium showrooms on the Spintex Road, Kumasi, Kasi Road, and Takrade. Awesome! Visit us now. Electroland bronya triple treat promotion that waits you.
We're back. This is News Tonight live on GH1 Television. My name is Keminni Amanor. Traders at the Odona market in Accra are counting their losses following a fire outbreak Wednesday evening. Several structures and wares were destroyed in the inferno. No casualties were recorded. The cause of the fire is yet to be ascertained, even though residents say the fire was as a result of a gas explosion from some people who were cooking as at the time the incident took place. Fire engines were rushed to the scene intermittently after an alarm was raised. Other emergency services joined in the attempt to douse the raging fire.
About 8 p.m. on Wednesday, traders at the Odona market had to battle the raging fire which gutted the market. The presence of over 4 firefighters at the scene were not enough to douse the inferno, as over 80 shops were burnt into ashes. Eunice, a trader at the Odona market who sells wares such as pegs, socks, handkerchiefs and canned foods, had come to the scene to see if she can get hold of any goods that were not affected, if there is any. She tells me she had lost goods worth over 1,600 Ghana cedis.
I'm a dose of that. Meant to me, the American is a mayor of the match year with the 60 million. But the brutes are bad.
Now, 60 million, you know, what can as a loan be woman as a
me call the busman 30 million and what fee and yellow loan being me call the fee. It's the other me share the young mayor. Man back where you go. I won't be quite way next month. School fees are mere na metua na dia by let me ban this or better fiance.
Another trader who had come to check on her shop had to leave in tears because she could not pick anything from the shop.
Send yes, no. I just went to me and Fabi crowd.
Bibi crowd, pani. 4 years is the same thing. Almost 3 times. Hashi 3 times.
Na mommy mpacho mebusa wa ohwa wo niema no kika boma sika dodo se no waluzi.
Bet say 20 million.
20 million na 20 million no obi bosia wo mana se den.
People say wo loan 10 million. Then am yankasa me yesusu 10 million.
After an inspection by the NADMO officials at the scene, the Director General for NADMO, Eric Ajiman, promised government support for the affected traders. Some traders complained of losing some of their wares to thieves. Hajia Fati, a trader, told the news team items worth 2,000 Ghana cedis had been stolen from her shop.
Because na jana ben ohunti ye na de se mi na osem comedy boys na nim na ye show mo so mi hu o se na smoke no ntin mi hu baby o mo de no manafa
oniema na ya no ha
me ton drinks but I'm not ne sa other drinks ntin normally they costly me sha bet 20,000 me sha costly.
Cause of the fire is yet to be ascertained, even though people have attributed it to some cooking by some Nigerians in the market. This is not the first time fire had razed down shops at the Odona market. Hence, traders here are pleading with authorities to ensure a stop to rescue fire outbreaks in the market.
Business is next. Don't go too far.
Business Brief is brought to you by Everywhere You Go, MTN.
Chief Executive Officer of Zoomlion Ghana Limited, Dr. Joseph Sian Ajipong, has debunked assertions that workers of the company have not been paid for months. According to him, his workers, to the best of his knowledge, have all been paid up to December 2018. Here's a report by Sedina Francisca Ahim.
Workers at sanitation giant Zoomlion Ghana Limited have been lamenting the company's inability to pay them for some months now. According to the workers, their bosses are living well at their expense, whilst they go into the trenches to work to meet the objectives of the company. The Chief Executive Officer of Zoomlion, Dr. Joseph Siao-Ajipong, has, however, denied the assertions, saying they are mere speculations.
Workers have been paid, the field workers have been paid up to December 2018. We took some funds and loans from banks and we have paid all their entitlement. They are committed now. We are in collaboration and working with the prisons as we speak now. You can see that the prisons are on the street working in collaboration with us to solve this problem. So I am very optimistic that this year you will see a very tremendous change in the area of sanitation in this country, and we are committed to do that.
Though the President's vision to make Accra the cleanest city by 2020 is on course, Dr. Joseph Siao-Ajipong says the achievement will require the collective effort of citizens and all stakeholders. He stated that the basic solution to Ghana's sanitation challenge is to ensure that every household has a waste bin, which is a prerequisite for effective waste management.
I personally commit myself in solving sanitation problem this year, and I want to pledge that all effort, all energy, all ideas that we have as a waste management company, Zoomlion, we are